Following Donald Trump's fiery press conference where he further drew equivalencies between white nationalists, neo-Nazis, and those protesting them, of course there was a number of lawmakers and members of the media and just US citizens who decided to criticize Donald Trump. And of course, the White House went into damage control. Now, one way that the White House does damage control is through their communications office. Their communications office releases essentially talking points to the GOP just to make sure that the messaging is consistent and very much supportive of the president. So let me give you what those talking points were, at least a couple of them, and then I'll tell you what the response was from the GOP. So one of the talking points was, the president was entirely correct. Both sides of the violence in Charlottesville acted inappropriately and bear some responsibility. So, I mean, he's just doubling down.
No, that's right? A tripling down right there.
Yeah, tripling down, that's a good point.
So, I mean, what do we tell you? We told you yesterday, he can't stop digging. So you think he's gonna find a way to get out of this mess? No, he's gonna find a way to make this mess worse. And it can't get much worse.
Well, I mean, don't underestimate him.
Okay, but for him to now put out marching orders for the rest of the Republicans, you are to continue to praise me and say that I am, quote, entirely correct, and it is very Trumpian, and to say, yes, both sides did it. He called people protesting bigotry and fascism, quote, very, very violent.
Right.
And
he said that some of those white nationalists and neo-Nazis protesting in favor of keeping those Confederate monuments up, some of them are very fine people.
Yeah. And people are not going to follow your marching orders. By the way, he says he's entirely correct. Let me just note for the record. He said, well, they came charging in. The alt-left did, a made-up term, although some establishment Democrats like that term too. And they should take note of who else is using it. Okay, they came marching in without a permit. Now, are you gonna be surprised to find out they did have a permit? He said, I like to figure out the facts before I talk.
Yeah,
no, you don't. Not only they had a permit, they had 2 permits. Not only did they have 2 permits, they were in a public park, which you don't need a permit for. So he was the exact opposite of entirely correct.
So let me give you some more of these talking points. He has been a voice for unity and calm, encouraging the country to rediscover the bonds of love and loyalty that brings us together as Americans.
Which one was that? That was Trump?
I mean, the
These
guy.
guys are mental, man.
Yeah, the guy who kicked off his presidential campaign by calling Mexicans murderers and rapists. Yeah, he's all about unifying people, and also dedicated the majority of his campaign about building a wall. Anyway, he also, or at least the White House also shared this talking point. From cop killing and violence at political rallies to shooting at congressmen at a practice baseball game, extremists on the left have engaged in terrible acts of violence.
So let's pause there. Nazi member, he's a vowed Nazi, runs over 20 people and kills Heather Heyer on American ground. And this guy says, talking points for tomorrow is, remember, blame the violence on the left.
Yeah, that's right.
This is the guy who's entirely correct. I mean, think about how disgusting that is. Instead of saying, hey, it's a low bar to clear. Let's say the Nazi who murdered someone was wrong. He says, no, don't talk about that. That's not in the talking points. There's no talking point about how, hey, the Nazis are wrong. No, instead, let's divert everyone's attention and attack the left who was there to protest him, who got murdered.
This entire week, the theme that keeps playing over and over again in my mind is the fact that those on the left keep trying to play fair, right? And so I'll give you an example. When Kathy Griffin released that photo of a decapitated Trump-like head that was bloodied and everything, we criticized her, right? A lot of people on the left criticized her because it was violent imagery that didn't add anything substantive or beneficial to a very important conversation that we need to have in the country. And now, even though obviously I still think that was a really bad move on her part, I feel like a clown for trying to play fair. Why am I trying to play fair? I mean, Trump made a big deal about, oh, can you believe what she's doing? It's so terrible. Oh, it's disgusting. And then you turn around and you make excuses for neo-Nazis and white nationalists after a 31-year-old woman was murdered by one of them. I mean, he has no shame. Again, we're the ones bringing a knife to a shootout. That's what's happening.
Yeah, well, I don't want to bring a knife. I don't want to bring a gun. I just want to bring ideas. And maybe that's naive, that's fine, okay? And look, I have faith in America that we are not pro-Nazi, that eventually the government, the authorities, the FBI, the Justice Department are going to do the right thing. And so far, the Justice Department, even led by Jeff Sessions, has done the right thing. And they say they're pursuing charges, obviously, against the people who did the violence, and they're not going after any of the peaceful protesters. So that's what I think. Just taking the law into your own hands is a terrible idea. I believe in the moral high ground. And look, if the government flipped, that would be a different situation. And I know he's the president of the United States and he's trying to get them to flip. But so far, the government is holding, and they're not, if they start, but look, I get what you're saying, Anna. There are very, very ominous signs. The story we did yesterday, where the Trump administration, including the Justice Department, asked for the names and addresses and phone numbers and credit card numbers and bank accounts to the 1.3 million people who'd signed up to protest Donald Trump. They wanted to get that from the internet. They said, oh, it's for the 200 people we think might have caused violence during inauguration, but you have their names, why didn't you just get their information? No, I want every single protester against Trump.
That's right.
So there are places to draw a line, and this is a great place to draw the line. And we are, and as you're gonna point out, a lot of Republicans are.
A lot of Republicans are drawing the line. They did not really care much about this memo urging them to agree with the president and basically know their role. So let me give you their response. I want to start off with Representative Steve Scalise, who is in physical therapy right now after being shot. The talking points touched on him, right? And so, well, how does Scalise feel about all this? Well, he released a statement saying, I was clear about this bigotry and violence over the weekend, and I'll repeat it today. We must defeat white supremacy and all forms of hatred.
Now, Scalise in the past had gone and spoken to groups that were connected to white nationalists, and I'm being kind to him by leaving it at that. But at least he knows, for God's sake, when the whole press is watching, you don't say, maybe white supremacists are very fine people. No, you say you don't condone bigotry and hatred after they just committed a murder. So credit to Steve Scalise doing the right thing at a very important moment.
Paul Ryan also did the right thing, although he wasn't one of the lawmakers who called Trump out by name. There were members of the GOP who did that. Paul Ryan said, we must be clear, white supremacy is repulsive. The bigotry is counter to all this country stands for. There can be no moral ambiguity. Also, we have David Perdue saying that the KKK, neo-Nazi, and white supremacist groups spew bigotry and racism. These groups and their ideals are the antithesis of American patriotism. John McCain had similar things to say and actually did call out the president. There's no moral equivalency between racists and Americans standing up to defy hate and bigotry. The president of the United States should say so. Barbara Comstock, similar sentiments. Mr. President, they were not very fine people. On the neo-Nazi, white supremacist side, only haters. Grateful the Department of Justice understands this.
These are all Republicans.
Yes.
But so, my favorite two are Mitch McConnell and Mitt Romney.
All right, so let's go to them.
By the way, that's the only time I've ever said that sentence in my life.
Let's go to graphic 22. Mitch McConnell says the following: we all have a responsibility to stand against hate and violence wherever it raises its evil head. He also says the white supremacist KKK and neo-Nazi groups who brought hatred and violence to Charlottesville are now planning a rally in Lexington, Kentucky. Their messages of hate and bigotry are not welcome in Kentucky and should not be welcome anywhere in America. And finally, Mitt Romney says no, not the same. Obviously touching on Trump's attempt to draw an equivalency between the right and the left. One side is racist, bigoted, Nazi. The other opposes racism and bigotry, morally different universes.
So that defense of the counter-protesters there by Mitt Romney was the best of the lot, and it was really comforting to see. And look, like I said in the beginning of today's show, this is a moment of truth. And a rare situation where it is fair to ask, which side are you on? And not a hard question. Are you on the side of the neo-Nazis and the KKK, or are you on the side of all other Americans? So at least the Mitt Romneys and Mitch McConnells of the world are having enough courage to say, no, Mr. President, not on our watch. We don't agree. We're not going to let you get away with it. And we're not going to fall into standard Republican Democrat lines, not on this. Mitch McConnell added, there are no good neo-Nazis, and those who espouse their views are not supporters of American ideals and freedoms, because Donald Trump had said that there were very fine people on that side. So this is exactly what we need. It's easy for the Democrats to stand up in this case. It's people who oppose Trump, people who voted against Trump, people who protest Trump. Bless your hearts, it makes a huge difference. But that is relatively easier because you're on the opposite side. But for Republicans and Republican leaders, and by the way, the entire Bush family, Jeb Bush, George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, all putting out statements and saying no. Arnold Schwarzenegger putting $100,000 into an anti-hate group to make sure that this is fought. So, if you ever wondered, is there any line that Republicans won't cross? We found it. It is in some days a great day in America. We found the bottom of the barrel. And here is the rest, most of the rest of the Republican Party, not all of them by the way, but most of them going, no, not on our watch. We're not gonna go there. We're not gonna support neo-Nazis and the KKK. The only one left on the other side appears to be Donald Trump. And anyone who's still supporting him on TV, or more importantly, in his administration, should immediately resign. And if you don't, we know where you stand. Support independent media. Come join us at the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.